Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Now Teslafy full self-driving beta version 11.4.2. I'm super excited to test this out. It has been a little over a month since I got 11.3.6. Elon claims that this should be a V12, but V12 is reserved for something special. The other thing that I will mention right out the gate is that I posted on Twitter the same thoughts, and follow me on Twitter if you want to participate in conversation. That's where I spend most of my daily time. But I posted on Twitter that these initial drives end up being kind of drastically different from when they are first released to by the time we're seeing the next one. I feel like Tesla does some internal test or tweaking that makes it out to our cars in some way, shape, or form. And usually this first test is usually pretty bad. Sometimes, right? And sometimes it's great. I've heard some very mixed things again on this particular version, but I'm excited to test it out on my loop. Again, my name is Sean Dempsey. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. And please, of course, the obligatory like, share, and comment, all that good stuff. Again, you'll find me on Twitter most of the time. And I'd also like to shout out my most recent subs. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. I try and shout out my subs as I release new videos. So today I've got Jamie H, Joe P, Kyle B, Butch S, JD Williams, Nocton, Vitalis O, Lucky Cat Tat, Sean, Love Jazzo 1, On Hyun, MP, Samuel C, Edwin VDK. I apologize if I have mispronounced anybody's name. Feel free to leave a comment how you want me to pronounce your name if you are a new subscriber, and I'll be happy to oblige by that. Of course, let's get started. I've got my first destination on my normal test loop. Okay, so still some blinker on curves. I've seen that in videos too. That's unfortunate. That's something that I've complained about quite a bit. I think will be... I can't wait for them to resolve. All right, so coming up to our creep line. My test loop here isn't particularly challenging. I think the return trip is a little bit more challenging, but we have some interesting things to check out here. So we're going to be coming up on our first unprotected left. Also wonderful news, just last week I believe, people who are on a higher branch of of their software were not able to subscribe to FSD, and now they can, although you'll be getting the 11.3.6. Not the 11.4 branch. All right, so unprotected left. We've got a decent amount of traffic here. High creep line. This is really far up here. But at this point, I think I'm okay with where it's at as long as it doesn't go any further. And it's showing it has a bit more. We've got some cross traffic coming from the right here that's going to be making a left in front of us. The good thing is it's holding and there isn't any motion. Okay, and this is a good move into the lane. Perfect. And it actually turned right into this kind of merge lane. That is awesome. And actually the first time I've kind of seen that behavior, and it perfectly glided into this. So that is awesome. Wonderful start to this drive. Okay, and we've got a right turn here, which usually is not an issue. In the wintertime, when the lane markings go bad, it'll cross the double yellow. And we're good here. So again, we have repainted here. Now the spraying is out. Slowing slightly for this FedEx, but not uncomfortable at all. The next challenge on this drive, which is interesting, is only crept up in the last version, 11.3.6. I've got an intersection coming up here that Beta likes to think is a four-way stop. And before we got the messaging saying what it would do here, it would just stop or brake for no reason. I didn't know why. Last version, and it was saying it was braking for a stop sign. There was no stop sign present for us. So let's see what we do. Okay, this is the intersection here. Perfect. Wonderful. All right, so no braking there. We went right through it just as we should. And another weird thing is that wasn't an issue in version 10 releases. Okay, so we need to get in this kind of middle lane. Perfect. And no turn signal. It usually would turn signal into these. That's awesome. So I hate to do this on a early start, but we really are off to a great start, and we should go with this. I'm going to go and intervene here just for the comfort of the four-way stop. We totally could have waited and it had been fine, but that's a fairly busy four-way stop for us. So I did intervene there and use the accelerator to move forward. And that four-way stop has been a pain. So I will actually be continuing to kind of test it a little bit more and see if we have any improvements. Although in my other videos I've mentioned the city is fixing that four-way stop for us by putting in a traffic control light. So Beta won't have to worry about it in the future. All right, but wonderful start. Even that small intervention, I would say that's a very minor thing, and I'm not worried about that at all. All right, so we have a yield here to roundabout traffic for folks coming onto the bridge. Sometimes we get a gimme and it doesn't actually end up needing to yield. Here we do need to yield, and actually it's just gonna roll right through. Okay, so I probably would have waited, but we kind of threaded the needle there. And hard for me personally, to be honest, to tell whether or not Beta ignored that yield. I think we slowed down, but it started rolling, so it was fine, maybe a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, so we don't need to move into this left lane, but this will work. I'm gonna let this play out. And that's actually gonna be one of my notes for anybody that is new to Beta and you're trying FSD, you're not used to it. Beta is going to do things that you normally would not or may not normally do. They may not be incorrect. They are generally just fine, but they're minor annoyances that or things that might not be optimal. Again, this lane choice for this intersection is totally fine. This is going to get us where we go. In fact, it may end up being better because we will be eventually in a middle lane. And that middle lane will generally allow us to, go through traffic a bit faster because we won't be having folks in front of us taking a right or left on the one-way we've got up here. So far so good. So again, just quickly back to folks that might be new to the program, Beta is going to do things differently than you would, and that can be frustrating, but once you kind of get used to it and you let Beta take its routes, do its things, and sit back and just kind of go along for the ride, if you will, that's part of the experience. And I think over time we'll especially see Beta being maybe a little smarter about some of the things it's doing. There also could be the fact that maybe you're not, even though it's your personal preference, may not be the most optimal way. So we'll see. I'm definitely kind of blathering a bit here, but I'm excited, really excited for this release, and so far we're off to a phenomenal start. Again, just the one small acceleration thing, I'm bump the speed just a little bit, setting on the accelerator at the four-way stop, but that's it. So far it's really nice and clean. Smooth turns, although that was definitely one of the things that I enjoyed tremendously about 11.3.6 was the turns and things have been a lot smoother. Okay, so Beta is choosing to move into this lane now, which is fine. Again, we've got a couple blocks before we need to make our right turn, but that's kind of a good preemptive choice. There could be some traffic that comes up behind us, especially at a light like this, right? It's going to pile up behind us, so now we don't have to necessarily like sneak into a lane. So that was probably a good decision. One of the other things that Chuck Cook has mentioned is been improved on this version is that Tesla has added additional vision for the B-pillar camera so they can see further out. That was a really interesting test. And thank you and shout out to Chuck Cook for doing some of these really interesting tests that probably the majority of us wouldn't think about. But it can indeed see further down, or is at least processing things further away and visualizing them. So that's a pretty neat addition to, and giving us a lot more, like, look how much stuff we can see. All right, so here's our right turn. Again, this has not really been an issue for us and is pretty easy. A little slow going around the corner, but it's kind of a tight right. Okay, so this used to be the big issue I had with this test loop and why I created it in the first place. Is down here we've got the public market. This is a right turn only lane. Are we gonna regress? Oh, we're going to be making a right. Interesting. So our target is across the train tracks over there. Oh, no, it's going to make... What's it going to do? Okay, so we're confusing some folks. I hear a train, actually. Don't see a light. Okay, so... Yeah, so there's the train. Luckily, I think we made it past. And so this is basically our destination. So I'll go ahead and disengage here. We actually reached our destination. So it's a bit awkward in that intersection. Totally probably confused some of the other drivers that were in the area. I'll have to go back and watch that video. You guys probably enjoyed maybe seeing some faces those guys had or made, but in the end we made it through. We shouldn't have been in that lane, but it didn't try to go, well, I guess it did actually technically go straight, and I wasn't paying attention to the bleakers. So awkward, yes, 100%, but it did it. So all right, so now we need to put our return trip in here. I'm going to cheat a little bit because we've got traffic. Kind of get it started on its return route. Re-engage. Okay. So again, a good first half of our loop. Again, being awkward in the intersection was very awkward and technically probably wrong. It would have been interpreted by others as you know, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, maybe he's new to town, I don't know. So in the vein of awkwardness, well, that was high, but it completed the maneuver without actually intervention. Previous versions, if it didn't do it correctly, which it has been doing it correctly, so I guess we're going to be adding that back to the list of some regression, but recovering from it, I suppose. The incorrect choice. So that's fine. Good, quick slalom, if you will, there. Unprotected left turn here. We've got a pedestrian. Felt a little bit of rollback here. Now that creep fence there, that's a weird spot for the creep fence. I think it's fine. We got a kind of a gimme here for the left turn. Okay, so light traffic here, not a big deal. Crept into the kind of parking area, which I think is probably okay, but it was kind of also to the left. I had also noticed that. I'll be interested to see in my test loop too. I've got a another left turn in a very similar type of spot where it creeps over into and make like angle to the left, almost blocking anybody that would have wanted to turn in front of us. Really bad. So I'm excited I'll be able to test that tonight, actually. So we'll give that a go. Good lane change over here. I'm preemptively selecting this lane for our ramp up onto the bridge. So far so good on this I would say disengagement-free drive. One of the other things I had also mentioned on Twitter, I've been on a couple of road trips lately, and it has been, I'd say, very good on highways and interstates that I've been on. Not perfect, but very good, and even to a large degree very comfortable. But one of the things I did want to shout out is that I feel like the nags are way less on the highways than they ever have been. They're at I would say, a comfortable rate. They are spaced out a good amount of time. It's not irritating or consistent, and yeah, I think it's a efficient or a non-intrusive nag. Hey, I'm still here, and just once in a while. So shout out to the autopilot team for allowing us some grace on that. All right, so no slowdown there on the entry ramp onto the bridge, which is good because we have our own lane. We don't have a merge lane here. We got some debris. Oh, wow, that was really awesome, actually. Beta did move away from that debris in the road, just slightly, not encroaching on the other car next to us, and we did have a car right next to us on the left. I'll be stoked to review that footage, but it wasn't directly in our path, but it really could have been an issue. Alright, so this, we'll see, we're getting real close. Okay, we're doing good. We do need to get into the left-hand lane, so is Beta going to speed up, or is he going to slow down for this traffic? And looks like we're getting a big slowdown. Folks are kind of going around us. Now Beta is speeding up a bit. Okay, it's making its way into the left lane. Good. All right, so lane change selection, I would have loved to have seen it get into that left lane earlier and take that middle route, so we would end up in this lane on the exit. But it was appropriate, and I think Beta did a good job. I personally probably would have sped up to get in front of the car because we were already in front of him, and just a little bit of extra acceleration would have gotten us comfortably ahead of him and be able to do that. But it was safe, it was appropriate, the signal was there. Not a fan of the lane change on the curve. And even if I am in a situation like that where I will make a lane change, I try to do that on a straight. Okay, so back to our four-way stop here where I had the one intervention, where I use the accelerator. Usually it doesn't have an issue with it on the return. We could have gone with that car. I'm going to let it play out here and see what happens. Okay, so we are going to go. Luckily, Beta did see that vehicle come out in front. I was not paying attention to the visualization, so I knew that was going to be kind of hairy. So I'm wondering if that vehicle that crossed in front of us was blue before we started moving. Let me know what you guys thought of that interaction in the comments. And pretty much the rest of this drive is very straightforward. I will be surprised if Beta has any issues with it. We just simply have a controlled left, a right, and then another left turn. So very simple loop. But thumbs up, 2 thumbs up, Beta. Really, I mean, I'm going to call it early because, again, the rest of this is a gimme and I never really have any troubles. I will be highly surprised if any issues, but disengagement-free loop 1, let's go, Beta. That is awesome. I've never had that happen on this test loop. It's always had something, like in one way, shape, or form, that has caused a disengagement, and really has been a challenge, a consistent challenge. So was it perfect? No. We had the one intervention right in the awkwardness at that right turn lane just before the Pybus challenge. So kind of the Pybus challenge creeping back in. So again, a good reason to keep doing these test loops over and over and over again to check for regressions. But we made it. I would say this drive on the whole was very comfortable. I had no phantom braking. The smoothness of the turns was really good. The interactions were good. Lane positioning choices were actually interesting, but I think beneficial. I think they worked out in the end, and the decisions of when to make those lane choices was also worked out really well. So on the whole, this was a phenomenal and probably the best drive I've had on beta with this test loop yet. Just amazing. So that does it for this particular test loop. And we will be doing test loop 2 a little bit later tonight. Thank you guys all so much for stopping by and watching, especially if you've made it to this portion of the video. I appreciate every one of my subscribers. I've got some other great videos coming up. I've been sponsored by a company to review their product. So I have my first paid sponsorship, which is pretty cool. I mean, paid as in they're sending me the product, and then I'll get a little bit of kickback if you guys happen to also like the product and want to order it. I haven't received the product yet, but once I do, of course, I will be sharing that as soon as possible. And follow me on Twitter for probably some preview of that as I get it. So again, thank you so much for stopping by and watching. If you again subscribe below, I will be shouting out new folks in each one of my videos going forward. I am almost to 500 subscribers on YouTube, which is an awesome milestone. Really excited about that. And same thing on Twitter as well. So I love talking to people about beta and Tesla. So hey, let's be friends, let's chat. And we will see you in the next video. Peace.